G'day everyone, this is Schultzy from the Two Ordinary Cops. Before we get into this episode, we want to let you know that it contains some real and sometimes distressing stories from the front line. Some of these experiences have led to PTSD for those involved. If you think this content might be triggering, we recommend skipping this one. But if you do choose to listen and find yourself feeling distressed, please reach out. You can contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 or Beyond Blue on 1300 22 46 36. Help is available. If you're okay to continue, we hope you enjoy the show and appreciate some of these powerful, raw stories from the front line.
Well, it's me here, Schultzy. Two Ordinary Cops are back, mate. How are you?
Yeah, mate, I'm going pretty well. Mate, how's life down there for you down in New South Wales?
Oh, freezing. It's freezing. It's bloody... Well, actually, I brought a bit of warm weather back from Lismore, but it's bloody cool here. I'll give you the drum. That's all right. But no, we're good. Hey, look, good episode tonight, mate. What do we got?
Yeah, mate, so it's we've got basically Craig Myers, a shout out to him. He got in contact with us and put us on to Nick White, mate. Nick, how are you?
Yeah, good guys. Thanks for having us on. It's nice to see the faces and have a chat.
Yeah, definitely, Nick. Welcome.
I was at school with Craig many moons ago. Me and him went to school together and played footy together. And it wasn't until I was walking through one of the Westfields one day in uniform and I bumped into him and he was in the Queensland Cops. So yeah, he put me in touch with us, which is good.
Yeah, no, excellent, mate. So, Nick, basically, we well, like I said beforehand, we're just going to give you the floor. So, do you want to introduce yourself, let you know what we're doing now, and just go through your career?
Yeah, mate.
Let us know.
Yeah, my name's Nick White. I'm in New South Wales. I was always going to join the cops. My old man was in the police for 28 years. He wrote a lot of the warrant legislation for New South Wales. He ended up running the warrant index unit here. My uncle was a Northern Territory officer many moons ago. He had a horse, a tracker, and a black tracker, and a four-wheel drive, and he was stuck out in the middle of nowhere. My cousin's one. There's family all over, so it was always something I was going to do. And then I left high school and I always wanted to be a pilot as well. So I tried to get into the military to fly helicopters, but I wasn't too smart. So I thought, I'll just go and join the grunts. So I become a paratrooper of all things. It's all good. And when you're 18, 19, you think it's all good. That $25 extra in your pay to throw your body out of a plane that's going to land anyhow. So that's what I did for a living. And unfortunately, I was in Asia and had a really bad truck accident. We had a massive convoy of trucks, and we hit trucks that bounced us off into the jungle, and unfortunately, we hit a tree that wasn't going anywhere and folded the truck into a little ball, and I ended up having some vertebrae problems. So I couldn't parachute, couldn't carry the pack because it was like the injury is pretty much just above your belt line, and that's where the pack sits. So with the weight we used to carry in the paras as well, it was a bit of a drama. So ended up getting out of that and moved over to England. My old man was from Scotland, so I had two passports. So I went and tried my hand over there just to see what life was about, and ended up going from jumping out of planes and shooting people to working in soft toys in Harrods. So it was a very big career change, and they kept on promoting me every time I threatened to quit. I just went, I've had enough. I'm going home. And they went, no, stay. We'll promote you. So I ended up going from just working on the shop floor all the way through to being a manager and having my own area and room to look after. And then I just woke up one day and went, Christ, it's bloody cold and miserable here. So I packed up my shit and come home. And then I was still thinking about joining the police. And I used to run a mate's bar and restaurant over here after I got out of the army. And was sitting there one day and I went, I'm just sick and tired of working all nights and dealing with, the alcohol and cleaning it all up and all that sort of stuff. And a mate of mine said, I'll come and do the sheriff's gig. And I had no clue what that was. And in New South Wales, they just do court security and they serve like family law court papers and all this sort of stuff. And there was a lot of overtime with it because the State Debt Recovery Office was, they had what they call property seizure orders, and we just had to serve a load of papers, basically. Decent money, and it was a Monday to Friday job, no nights. And I was standing on the front door of Liverpool Courthouse one day, just doing some security, and a guy I joined the paratroopers with walks in police uniform, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And haven't seen him in a long time, and we start chatting, and I went, "Oh yeah, maybe I should consider joining it." And he actually come back with the papers to join, and he went, "Bloody fill them in, come over." So yeah, ended up going from that, and then joined the New South Wales Coppers, which that was joined in 2003. Joined 2002, but graduated because I was the last group to go through the university at Richmond, because all that the Wood Royal Commission down here, when they had all that stuff with all the corrupt coppers and the cross and stuff like that. That changed everything. So they wanted everyone to be pretty much university trained. So they made you go through and do 6 months was it 3 months? Something like that, of university crap. And then went down the academy and graduated in August 2003. And my first station was Liverpool, which was my old man's first station. And it was my first boss was his mate, and he come to my graduation. I still remember this. Comes to my graduation, he goes, "Oh yeah, it's good to see you graduate." It was very emotional. And I said, "Oh, my boss is just behind you, Dad." And he turns around, and my boss was a portly man, to say the least. And he just goes, "Oi, Jaco, you fat fuck." The boss turns around and goes, "Oh shit, Whitey, haven't seen you in years." And I went, "Oh my God, Dad, that's my boss." And he comes over chatting away, and he goes, "Oh, my son's coming up to see you." So my first day on the job, get to the station, and you're doing all the introductions to the station, and we have a big meeting with the boss. Comes down, and he just walks in and goes, "Oh, I know your old man, and he's a good copper, and if you're anything like him, you'll be a half decent copper." And I'm just like, "Oh, no worries, boss." And I thought introduction to Liverpool policing was my old man calling him a fat fuck. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And then
very good, mate.
then after that, just I was at Liverpool for 13 years, and then Liverpool in New South Wales, it was a Category 1 station, so it was one of the most violent and busiest stations they have in New South Wales. So, just to give you an idea of how busy it was, in summer, on a Friday and Saturday night, we would have 4-cage trucks, 2 sedans, and then we would have probably 4 to 5 highway patrol cars on, 2 detectives, anti-theft. We'd probably steal one of the CMU cars and have the Beats guys out in that, or the Beats guys were out on their bikes. That was just a regular Friday, Saturday night. It was an insane place to be. It was so busy, and it was one of those places you had to sink or swim. Where you get sent and you go, "I have to learn everything." Otherwise, you literally don't survive in that sort of environment. And it's, as we've all been.
Oh yeah, we know it. We know it.
Yeah, it's like, you've got to know, otherwise you're going to get sunk. And we had a lot of problems back then with the Serbians and the Croats, and then they didn't like the Lebanese, so we had a lot of issues with them. We had a Macquarie Street Mall. I still remember that we actually had probably about a month or two of running battles on a Thursday night, where we had the police riot gear, we had the dog squad, helicopters. They just literally wanted to kill each other, and it was just over, I have no clue really. It was just over them hating each other. And then all of a sudden it just stopped one day. So yeah, had some very interesting times there. A long period there where I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought I might quit the cops, but I'd been there that long that I just become sort of part of the furniture, so I could pretty much get away with anything. You still do the job, but then they turn around, they go, it's just Whitey, don't worry about it, all this sort of stuff. Or I was that person where if the job needed to get done, they would be the ones calling me going, listen, this guy's playing up, can you go to this job? And, you'd go and you'd sort the job out. And then I had my first run-in with some PTSD issues with mental health. I had a spate of 4 really crap jobs in the space of about a week and a half. I was a young fella, because I was highway trained as well. I was sitting in for the traffic sergeant when he went off on holidays. I'd do all his work and stuff like that. So I set my own shift, and I thought, I've got to serve some papers, but I could never get them at daytime. So I was doing an afternoon shift. So I took one of the cars and I went out to one of the neighbouring commands, and a priority job come through for a young fella who got his dad's unsecured shotgun and shot his mate in the face. So, being the first one there, and then it's like, what hole do I breathe into? Because there's nothing left. And then there was that. There was a murder-suicide with the bikies. His missus left him because he was just a bikie. And it's weird because I always used to turn up to that service station on a day shift and fill the car up and go home, and I'd always say hello to her. And I didn't that day. And I got back to the police station, and then there was a priority come through for a shooting at this one. So he'd walked in there with a sawn off and gone up to right at the console and hit a fair and square in the chest. And it was just, I rocked up and we started doing CPR, but there was some ambos who, same kind of thing, they had no idea. They pulled in to fill up their truck, and I just went, gunshot wound, get your shit, let's go. So we had that. And then I held on to a bloke who we thought was a big Tongan bloke, but he ended up being a skinny Serbian. He'd been in the Georges River for 5 days. And he was coming up the river as people were coming into the little beach in their boats and where they were trying to get the boats out. And the current was going that way. So I ended up having to hold on to him and bring him towards the shore. Otherwise, he was just going to float down to all the weekend beachgoers. And then it was a mid-air plane crash, 2 light aircraft. One made it back to Bankstown Aerodrome, and the other one hit into a house. And I remember I just finished doing an accident, and they got on the radio and they said, "Hey, Liverpool 224, can you hear anything? Has there been a plane crash near you?" And I said, "I'm standing right on the highway. The only thing I can think of is people fly little remote control aeroplanes in the next footy field. I can go and check there if you want." Just thinking someone might have seen from a distance, like a plane go down, and if it's high, you might have got it mistaken. But as soon as I got up there, I looked across the highway and went, "Oh fuck!" And there was actually a plane in the back of this house. So flew around there, and there was 2 females. And I think just being men in general and what we used to do, you want to protect kids and women especially. And getting in there, and like I didn't know whether they were alive or dead at the time. But I still remember the pilot and her hand come out, and it was just really lovely manicured nails and some jewelry. And, then I went around, and it was an Indian trainee pilot. And from what apparently had happened is there was an older man in another plane who had come up underneath them, and he'd clipped them at the front, and then they've sort of dived over to the right. But they didn't stand a chance and when we ended up getting him out, the injuries were just so horrific that they would have probably bled out well before I got there. So pretty horrific scene, I remember getting home, and the wife at the time was making, of all things, chops. And I walk into the kitchen and see the brown meat in there, and I just went to the bathroom and threw up. And then had a bit of a phone call with my sergeant and said, "Man, can I just have a couple of days off?" And he goes, "Yeah, just take the weekend off, go to your doctor, get a certificate." And went to the doctor and got the certificate and went to come back to work. And then because it was such a huge incident and blocked the highway and all this sort of stuff, my superintendent had sent me off to another doctor, and they said, "Oh, you've got post-traumatics." I went, "Okay, fair enough." So I took some time off. I think it was like 12 months. But the boss was good. He said to me, "I don't want you back until you're certified to come back, because the last thing you want to do is go back and then suddenly 3 months' time you're punching on with someone, or you're getting interviewed over something you shouldn't have done." So I had that time, and then went back to the local area to get back to work, and that was good. Just kept on working there. It was a really lovely area down at Shoalhaven, which was down at the south coast of New South Wales. And I just kept my mouth shut, and I kept turning up to work. And then it was like about 18 months later, and the boss down there said, "What are you still doing here?" No, I'm just turning up to work, mate. He goes, "No, piss off. You're back to Liverpool." Then did Liverpool for another couple of years after that, and then my kids moved up to Port Macquarie, up the mid north coast with their mum. She took them up there, and I didn't want to be like hours and hours and hours away from the kids, so I put in for a transfer. And you know what the internal system's like. You put in for a transfer. "Oh, we don't have positions." And I'm like, "I know you have positions, mate. Like I've spoken to people up there." So that didn't go through with the normal transfer. And I remember the conversation I had with the transfer unit. I said to them, they said, "Oh, well, what do you want me to do with your application?" And I said, "I just send it back to me with a big tub of lube, because you fuck us in the arse if we're a good cop, and you give everyone else what they want." So that was the last I had to do with the transfer unit. And I got to work on the Monday, and the superintendent calls me up, and he knew my dad and knew my circumstances and that. And he said, "Did you happen to speak to the transfer unit on Friday?" I said, Yeah, I did." He goes, "What did you tell them?" And I said, "That they fuck everyone in the ass and send us a big tub of lube with me application, because, I know they've got positions, but they're just being stupid." So thankfully, he had a big shout out to Peter Gillum. He's an ex TRG bloke, and was a really good operator. And he worked all the way through to superintendent. And he made a phone call to a mate up there, and he said, "Listen, I've got this guy. He's good." And ended up, I think it was 2 weeks later, I was transferred up to highway up there. And then, I was working in the mid north coast, which was brilliant. Like it's one of those places that it's about half an hour from the ocean. And then we still went up to, like, we were bordering, we'd do jobs all the way up to like Ballina and places like that. It was just such a good place. You had really beautiful country. There's a lot of Indigenous there as well. Like there was 2 missions in Kempsey where I was based, but in general, it was great. And then what happened? I dragged a bloke out of the passenger window of a car, and that's when my temper was getting the better of me. And it was all relating back to jobs that I'd been to. And I knew this shit had drugs on him, because he was just too squirmy in the car. And then he wouldn't get out of the car. And I said, "Mate, last chance." And I dragged him out the window, and he's got it on video, and I'm on YouTube famous apparently. And we got the drug dog up, and it went straight to his ass and straight to the seat. And, but there was nothing we could do about it. There was that. And then I could feel my mental health really straining. And this was around the 2017 kind of mark. And I was doing a night shift out at Southwest Rocks. We were out there, it was an easy place to get pissies. There was only like a one-man station, but they hardly ever worked weekends and stuff. So it was a bit of a free range for them to drink and drive. And we pulled this one car over, and another car went past, and these pissed idiots shouted out to us, and they just pulled in front of us into a house, and I just said, "What's the go, mate? You wanted our attention, you got it. What's the problem?" And this bloke got out of the back seat, and as soon as I saw him get out, I thought, "Fuck! If he throws a punch, it's going to hurt." He was about 6.5, 7 feet tall, a massive, massive bikie, and we were talking and that. Anyhow, he took a swing and he clocked me right here, and you can see, if you can see there, see how it goes in, just there. I've got no.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it didn't break, but it pushed my lower jaw. So he hit me on the left hand side, just near the ear. So the TMJ joint's right there. He's hit me there, and it's pushed my lower jaw to the right. Didn't break it, but it broke the front teeth. Had 12 stitches inside, and I can't remember anything from the time he hit me until the time I was at the hospital. But when I look at the body worn, he got fucking towed up as he should. And cuffed and taken back. And the only reason it wasn't one of those one punch things was because as he's hit me and I've gone down, my arm went out, and I've gone down and landed. My right elbow's up in the air, so I've kind of landed underneath my upper arm. But from the ICV and the body worn, if I hadn't have had my arm up there, I would have probably cracked my head on the bloody concrete footpath. And yeah, after that, I was in so much pain, had dental surgery, but I was always in pain and getting bad migraines because of my jaw, and no one could ever figure it out. There was nothing broken, so there was nothing they could do. I was in so much pain, and then I was just picking fights with fuckwits, and I just wasn't in the right headspace. And I ended up transferring out to Parks in New South Wales, right in the middle of New South Wales.
Yep.
That was a good place. It was a wonderful.
Dish.
Yeah, it's just totally different country policing. They used to have a big problem with four-wheel drives doing illegal hunting, but also busting into farmhouses and stealing their firearms. So I was kind of requested to target them, and it's not very hard to target them. Half the people don't know. They jack their four-wheel drive up and then wonder why it rolls off the road. But yeah, we had a good time out there. That was 2019. So I was, the jaw incident happened in 2019, and it wasn't until 18, 19, 20, 21. It wasn't until the end of 2021 to the beginning of 2022, something like that I found that it wasn't broken, and it was all the tendons and all the muscles were so far stretched and out of line that they were holding my jaw out of place because they didn't have the strength to pull it back. I was like, holy shit. So, that was just I was still cracking teeth just for when you get like really stressed and you get a headache and you start clenching. And I was doing that, and I was cracking I cracked like 3 or 4 teeth on the bottom of my jaw just through the pain that I was dealing with. And it was a shitty thing to go. They sent me from Parks to North Sydney, which was a 6.5 to 7 hour drive, literally for a ortho guru Swami bloody doctor to spend 5 minutes poking my jaw and go, yeah, that's not structural. There's nothing I can do for you. And I went, what? So then I had to drive all the way back. So no one knew what was going to happen with that. And it wasn't until I was out of the job and I moved back to suburbia that I went to a physio, and I said, anything about the TMJ? And he goes, I'm actually trained in the temporal mandibular joint. And he actually worked on it. And I was physically crying and struggling not to get up off the physio's bench thing when he was doing the thing. He had his hands like gloved up, but he had his hands inside my mouth pressing on the muscle. And he said, this is going to bloody hurt, because your TMJ joint runs pretty much, it comes up across your jaw, and then just above your ear, it goes underneath the jawbone, but then it wraps around your entire skull. So that's why you can get real bad headaches from clenching your jaw, because it's the same muscle that's clenching that will cause a stress headache.
Mm.
And he was doing all these things, and my head felt like it was going to explode. And it probably took about 4 to 5 months of seeing him twice a week to get to the point where I could open my jaw without it hurting.
Bloody hell.
And it's probably 75% of normal now, but it's never going to be the same. So, yeah, if you're ever having any jaw issues, go and find someone who's qualified in TMJ physiotherapy, and they work it all. And even like pressing, just where your earlobe is, he was pressing down things here, and I could feel the muscle. I could feel pain shooting from there all the way to the other side of my head. It's just the way the muscles work, and because my muscles had been, for 5 years, they'd been locked in a position. It was like rock. And he got my hand one day. He says, "Feel this," and he put it inside and felt it, and I went, "What the hell is that?" And it felt like I had a tooth in the middle of my freaking jawline. And he goes, "No, man." He goes, "That's your muscle." He goes, "Because it's been so knocked around that you can't do it." And it's still even causing problems, because on my right big tooth at the front, just at the back, and this one's a proper tooth. The tooth is starting to chip away because my bottom jaw's off center. It's where I shut my mouth. It's chipping the back of my teeth now. So, yeah, that was a pain in the ass. But the big thing was, on 2021, 22nd of February, which is a bit of a shitty one for me. I was on a patrol. We used to do these patrols for highway. You'd be tasked to it, and it'd be between Dubbo and just south of Forbes. So you'd have like that stretch alone is probably 2.5 hours, 3 hours one way. And it was just to be like a visual presence. And because the Newell Highway in New South Wales, it runs the whole length. It's a really, really busy highway, but it's a real big fatal. It's one of the top 5 fatal highways in New South Wales. And like you'd be having trucks smashing and big head-ons, and people just fatigued, falling asleep, and becoming a bloody windshield ornament and all this sort of stuff. And I was in Forbes, and I just was at the intersection of the Newell Highway in this street, and a job come through for an unresponsive baby. And it was in this street, and I was like, fuck, I'm only 10 seconds away. And I said, yeah, okay, 229, I'm literally in that street. I'll go. And I remember getting there, grabbed the first aid kit, and I knew obviously it was pretty bad when the father comes running out the front door waving you down. So I remember going in the house, straight down the hallway, and turning into the bedroom, and then I looked down, and there's a 1-week-old baby on the floor, probably the length of your hands put together, and he was sky blue in colour. So I can talk about that. I don't know whether you guys have ever heard about it, EMDR. It's this
No.
It's this particular therapy where it regresses what you talk about or what is going on in your head, and then it brings you back at little pieces at a time. So it always used to be in colour, that whole scene for me in my head, and I could never talk about it. But now that particular scene, up until getting into that room, there's still an emotion attached to it, but it's black and white, and it's like I'm narrating it, and I can do that quite easily. It's from getting into that room onwards that it's real difficult.
Sorry, Nick, can I just ask about EMDR? Because Pete Vinicombe mentioned that in a previous podcast, and I didn't know what it was, and he sort of continued, and we didn't interrupt him. So I would regret not interrupting you now to ask how that process works.
Alrighty, so here's it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it's a type of psychotherapy used to help individuals post-traumatic memories and reduce their associated distress. It is a structured therapy that involves recalling traumatic experiences while engaging in bilateral stimulation, often through eye movement. While initially developed for PTSD, it is now being used to address other mental concerns like anxiety, phobias, and depressions. So basically, my therapist sat me down and we were looking at each other like I'm looking at you guys. And she would look at me, but to her right, she would have her finger up and she'd go, concentrate on my finger. And she go, okay, and we'd start at, okay, I'm inside the house. Okay. What's the feeling it's giving you now? I'm so anxious. I don't know what I'm going to get into. And then she moves the finger like this. And you've got to keep your eye on the finger. So your eyes, you don't move your head, your eyes are just following the finger moving. And then she stops and she goes, what did you hear? And she wants you to, or they want you to concentrate on the sound that you're hearing at the present time. So I remember it was raining and I said, I can hear a lot of rain. She goes, okay, I can hear a lot of rain. You're in a safe environment. Now what's the next step? I go down the hallway. Okay, now concentrate on what the next part is you hear. And she goes back to doing the finger waving thing. And the whole process is you're bringing up that really traumatic thing that happened, and it's desensitizing that for you to be able to process it and deal with it in little segments. But it's also using the outside, like you might hear something, you might see a car go by. So you say that to the therapist, and then they use that as, all right, let's go back. And now we're going to think of the next thing, or tell me what you hear or whatever. So it is really desensitizing you to the environment by using the situation you're in now. There's different ways of doing it. They can do it with the finger. Some don't use the finger. But if you're ever in a situation and it does come up and you can have it, it's really, really incredibly beneficial. There is, I'll just get back on Google. What engaging bilateral stimulation when you've got your eye movement, you're dealing with it, but it allows the memories to process. It's the way your brain works. So it can do it. It starts with 8 phases. It goes through the history taking, the client prep, all the way through down to having it, and then they do like a reevaluation to see how you go at the end. It's a fully recognised and effective treatment for PTSD by organisations such as the American Psychiatric Association, the Department of Defence, and it's widely accepted that the eye movements coupled with EMDR is like really the one of the key components of helping you deal with these incidents. Instead of just talking about it, it actually regresses you to it and then uses it. You're using your own feelings and emotions and the situations to desensitize yourself to the point of you being able to talk about it. And it's incredibly weird. It doesn't work with some people. Like I've had other friends go, I tried it and it didn't work. I think you've got to be really open and allow yourself to feel. Because at the end of it, like I was crying. And she went, that's totally fine. Some people cry from the start. Some people don't cry. It's just depending on how you're feeling. Because like as I was coming towards this first section of what we were doing, I turned in and I saw the little baby and I knew what was coming next. So I was already getting emotional. But by using and breaking it down into little sections and by desensitizing you to that and with the external stimuli and obviously with the eye movement, it all coupled together, and like I can't rave about it enough. It is so incredible to have that EMDR happen. So anyone listening, if you've got any sort of mental health injury, please go and see your therapist and ask to start EMDR. It's absolutely a game changer. Like I've had people and friends say to me, it's changed them totally. And I'm one of them. I can quite happily sit here and go, I don't think if I had EMDR, I would be as good as I am today, really.
Yeah, no, mate. Thanks for covering off on that because I was curious to that particular treatment, and I didn't mean to interrupt your story, but I just wanted to hear what that was. So, but please continue. Yeah.
This unresponsive baby, and I went in and the mother was on the phone to the ambulance and to Triple O, and she put the phone straight to me, and I said, "Okay, you just step out of the room." So the little baby's name was Harry. So Harry was in between the wall and the bed, and it was pretty much I could fit between him and the bed, and then that was it. There was no other room. There was room beside me on either side, but you couldn't get anyone else any other side. So I knew I had to start CPR, but on someone that small, I was absolutely petrified that I was going to blow his lungs up. And that I was going to, I mean, when you do CPR, and for those who don't know, when you do CPR properly on an adult, you should crush bone. You should break bones if you're doing it correctly, because there's no point just pressing on the rib cage because you're not getting to the heart. So you've in effect, you've got to break it. But I thought that like with babies and small children, you've got to use the index finger and the middle finger of each hand. And you got to push down. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't want to push too hard, but I knew that I had to. Sorry. When I started doing it, like his little chest went almost down to the floor. And I was like, Christ, what am I doing sort of thing. And then you got to do like two small little puffs, but even a puff, I don't know, like he was a 1 week old baby. Like, I mean, the lungs are not very big. Anyway, I never really understood the link between twins, and it wasn't until his mum come out of the other room and she was carrying his twin, and I didn't know. And everything I was doing to little Harry, the other baby was screaming. And like I've never ever heard a scream so horrific. Not even in horror movies, nowhere. And it got to the point I had to say to her, "You got to go up. You got to go into the lounge room. You got to move away. I can't do it." Because when I was doing the compressions, it's like I was doing it to him, like I was doing it to the little baby, like the twin. And I've known twins, and they always said, "Oh yeah, there is a connection," and I never ever understood it. But my God, that was something that I really hated, because it was a connection. He was feeling what I was doing. And that went on for what seemed like an eternity before the paramedics arrived. And I'm thinking, great, I'll get to stop doing what I'm doing. But I'd been doing it that long that my hands were starting to cramp into, like, I looked like I had, hooks for hands, like the two fingers on each side. I had cramped massively, so I was literally stuck in that sort of position. So the two paramedics come either side, and there was the guy. He started bagging the little guy, and the inspector paramedic. He was like there. I don't know whether you got him up there. Where like a little rapid response.
Yeah, like an intensive care paramedic.
Yeah, like he's the first one on. And I tried to focus on him, and I knew him, and he looked at me and he went, "You're right." And I went, "No." So I kept on doing it. And I tried to focus on him and what he was doing. And because I knew they've got to try and get something in to see what's going on. And like a week-old baby, you can imagine the veins are like thread thin sort of thing. And I thought, how the hell are you going to get a needle in that? There's absolutely no way. So he pulls out these things, and I've never seen this before. Pulls out these things that look like a massive thumbtack. And I was like, what the fuck are you going to do with that? And he goes, I've got to screw it into his leg. And I'm like, what? And he goes, because they're so early, it's the quickest way to get any medication or anything they need into the blood system is to go straight into the bone, and the body picks it up.
Intraosseous access.
Yeah. And it's
intraosseous.
It's amazing to watch. Like, I was focusing on that while I was still doing these things to try and take my mind off it, but it was extremely interesting to watch. But like, again, with I don't think we as people realize how strong the human body is, even at 1 week old. Like, obviously there's things it can't do, but he was grabbing hold of this little guy's legs and using all his might to screw this into the little baby's bone, because it's got to go through obviously the skin and muscle, which at that age is not much. And he was fighting to get it into the bone. It's just incredible to even think back that was what was happening. And as we were doing the stuff, the CPR, his CO2 started to rise in his lungs, and so that was a good sign. And so they went, rightio, we'll keep going, and it was it was 35 minutes CPR, and the inspector looked at me and he goes, "We've got to get up, we've got to go." And he started to be less blue, it was coming into a pale colour, and then he just dropped. And he literally just said, "We'll keep doing it. We'll walk past the family. It's like to give them the hope that there's something going to happen." But he was gone. Couldn't save him, and it still fucking breaks me that logic tells me that there was nothing I could have done. If a busted ass, nearly 20 years senior constable from Highway, he ain't got a chance if the intensive care paramedic can't do it. That's what my logic brain says, but the father, the police officer, the protector in me is like, should have got there sooner, should have floored it, should have got there quicker. All the what ifs, which are never real, never true. And yeah, I really do thank the ambulance officers at Forbes in New South Wales, because when the ambulance had gone off, before they actually left, he said down the hospital in the ambulance bay in 10 minutes. So I went down there and we all had a little debrief and a bit of a cry together. And I really felt sorry for one of the female paramedics, because it was her best friend who just lost a baby.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And the father, I don't know whether they're still together, but basically what had happened, the mother had been up and down all night. So the father said, "Hey, how about you have some sleep? I will get him some milk for the morning and I'll go out into the lounge room and let you sleep." And so she went, "Yeah, no worries." So he'd given them a milk, and he had the twins, and so he had them, but each twin was on each of his shoulders and head was out, so they were breathing. So the father's sitting there in the armchair, the father's nodded off, and little Harry has turned his head and nuzzled into the neck. So so the father's woken up and gone, "Oh my God, Harry." And that's how it started. And I don't know whether they're still together. I think it'd be a very difficult situation if they were. And when I left the parks area, I actually bought a plant, and it was a blue climbing plant, and I wrote a card and I left it down. I always wanted to go and say sorry to the people that I couldn't save their son. So I wrote a letter to them, and I put this plant down there, and I said, "Look, a friend of mine lost their baby through birth, and they actually bought a plant, and they called the plant after their daughter, and they take the plant when every time they've moved." And I thought, look, this could be something that could, bond. You could always come out and say, "Good morning, Harry," and, water him and talk to him, and might be something nice for you. But yeah, I left that, and I remember the duty officer saying, "How you doing?" And I said, "I'm going to cry." And I just went off to the local river and got out and fucking burst into tears. And, my phone's going off with all these different, one assistant commissioner I knew was before he even become a super, and he was on the phone talking to me. And I did have a lot of support. I have to say that, but I had a lot of support from I was in highway patrol at the time, but a lot of support from the highway patrol hierarchy, like the superintendents and the big bosses. Yeah, they were all on the phone. One of them, he gave me his personal mobile and said, "You need anything, you call me straight away, and I'll get it done." And then I took 2 weeks off. I thought, I need to take 2 weeks off. And they obviously knew that there was an issue because we'd already lost 3 blokes in that area to suicide. And I've lost 5 mates in my time in the cops to suicide, and I think they knew that there was quite a high possibility that something might happen. And if it wasn't for my kids and one of the other coppers out there, Nadia Batten, for her support and my kids being there, I would have killed myself for sure, 100%. I would not be here. I remember going home and I just drank for days. They flew a critical incident psychologist from Brisbane to Sydney, then out to Parkes. And he was ex-Navy and ex-Army. And he then became a critical incident psychologist after a few things that happened to him. And I remember him walking into the house and he just looked at the kitchen where all the beer bottles were and just went, "Fuck me." And I said, "Well, what else am I supposed to do, mate? I can't stop thinking about it. And if I'm drunk and pass out, then I don't think about it." And it got worse and worse and worse. And I stopped drinking and was seeing a therapist and things like that. And I thought, okay, I'll go back to work. I'm okay to go back to work. And I was just picking fights. I was going out to the bad areas, and I wasn't breath testing people. I was just going up, and I wanted to punch on with someone. I wanted to hurt some piece of shit that the way I was hurting, and the way that family was hurting, and thinking, why does some grub get to deserve to live when little baby's not doing anything? And then I found that I wasn't remembering what I was doing. Like I was driving from Parkes to Dubbo was 2 hours, and I was driving and I would turn up at Dubbo and I had no recollection of getting there. And I was like, I could have just driven in front of a bus or a truck, or I had absolutely no clue what was going on. And I didn't want to be a statistic. I didn't want that. I had, shared care of my kids, and I didn't, as you guys would have as well, I didn't want to turn around and have them wondering, why Dad did this, and didn't Dad love me enough to stay around, sort of thing. And we've all seen what it's like when someone's suicided, and you go to do the death message, it destroys the family. And I didn't want to have that pressure on the kids, so there's definitely no way I would or do anything like that. But I just couldn't remember where I was driving, what I was doing, and I just wanted to punch on with people. And then I was sitting at home one night and my phone rang, and it was guys from work. And they said, "Oh, have you been drinking tonight?" And I said, "No, why?" And they went, "Oh, well, we've got a job coming up from Adelaide and we can't stop the car. Can you come into work?" And I went, "No." It was 9:30 at night. Anyhow, this bloke from Adelaide had killed his flatmate, set fire to him, and then tried to set fire to his missus and his missus' friend, and stolen his mother's car, and then drove from Adelaide all the way up through the centre of New South Wales, and the cops couldn't stop him. And I ended up getting into a pursuit with him, and I thought, okay, this must be pretty serious, when I called pursuit and it was pissing with rain in night time in a country road, and I had the police plane up, and I thought, something must be pretty serious here. And radio just went, "Yeah, go ahead, continue." And he ended up taking a bend too sharp and ploughed into a pole and punctured his lung. But thankfully he's back in Adelaide doing 25 to life now for murder and attempt murder. And I just kept on just wondering, what if I still have not been to Forbes, and I cannot drive up that street. And I woke up on the 10th of May and I called my boss and I said, "I need help. I'm drinking. I can't remember what I'm doing at work. I'm looking for a fight. I don't want to be a statistic, and I need help with this because it's shit. And I never went back. I was diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, depression, and once the psychiatrist had given his report, and I said, "Do I even have to stay out here anymore?" Because I'm like, the shitty thing was, because it was a country town, everyone knew everyone's business. So I'd go for a walk and I'd go and get a coffee, and like I remember the girl making the coffee went, "Oh, how you doing?" I said, "Oh, yeah, not too bad." And I remember her saying, "So are you going back to work? Because we all know you're off after that baby job." And I'm like, "Fuck, I don't even know your name. You just make the coffee." And then I was at the post office, and I had a very similar thing where people were asking me how I was after the baby job, and I was like, I don't really want to deal with that. So because I was getting out, I went back to Southwest Sydney, and my two of my kids moved in with me, which was good. That really settled me down. And then I was waiting in what we call the departure lounge just to get out of the cops. And the stupid thing is they make you wait 9 months, and then they go, "Oh, do you want to get back in the job?" It's like, no, we've already got the report to say that. Like, my psychiatrist said just after that job, the baby job, and he goes, "That's all I need to know." I said, "What?" I said, "I've got like 20 years with this shit." And he goes, "No, on that job alone, you are not going back to the police." And unfortunately, he's passed away now, Selwyn Smith. He did psychiatry for like 60 odd years or something, helping people. And then he died a week or a month after he actually retired. So he spent all that time helping people and fell off the perch himself. And I just was sitting there waiting to get out. And because you can't do any volunteer work or anything, because they go, "Oh no, well, if you do have an accident, the insurance company will all get upset and all this sort of shit." And I was sitting there going, there is nothing for people that just want to talk. Like, we have a lot of organisations that like go, "Oh, you've got mental health, you're an ex-police officer. Here, come and do a course with us. Pay us $500 or $600, and we'll get you back in the workforce." And I had people going, and I was the same. It's like, I don't want to get back into the workforce just yet. I need to process this. And after leaving the police for so long, like, that was a massive chunk of my life. Like, what do I do? And so I started a Facebook group, and it was just called Bellator Fortitudinem. And that's Latin for warrior strength. And it was just probably about 20 or 30 cops that I knew, and we were all in various stages of getting out. Some were still in, and we were just talking about, how we were treated and the mental health, and exchanging therapy ideas, and, asking questions of each other. Yeah, so as I was saying, the Facebook group was just getting bigger and bigger. So I didn't know really what to do with it, and I thought, I'm getting a lot more interest from other organisations. It was just going to be cops to start with, but it ended up, all the main three emergency services started getting in touch with me and saying, "Can we come onto your group?" And I went and spoke to a friend of mine who runs a company called Not-for-Profit Specialists, and we ended up, deciding that we're going to turn the Facebook group into a non-for-profit charity, so we can actually help people and raise funds for people. Because what we found, or what I found when I was waiting to get out of the police, was there's a lot of organisations that are out there to help, but they want to help you get back into the workforce. They want to go, "Oh, we know you're damaged, but here, come and do a course with us, and now you can go and work wherever." And there's a lot of people, and I was one of them, where it's like, I need to process what I've been through. Like, it's usually like horrific things that lead to being diagnosed with these things. So there's a lot of processes that go on. And, doing 2 decades, it's a big chunk of your life that suddenly doesn't exist anymore. Like, we're all in a uniform, we're all part of the badge, and then suddenly one day is your last day of service, and it's like, well, what the fuck do I do now? So there is that loss of identity as well. And I just wanted to have a safe space for people to come and vent, cry, laugh, whatever they needed to do, exchange of therapy ideas and just somewhere for them to actually feel that they can simply be themselves and that they're not alone. Because, we are different from the average Joe. We're that 1% that runs towards danger when everyone else is, getting their phone out and videoing it and running away. So it got to a stage where I thought, obviously it needs to be a charity. So we started the charity, jumped all through the hoops for the Australian charities and the commission to get registered. So we are, we have our DGR status, which is our tax deductible status. So any donation over $2 towards us goes to, you can claim back on tax. And it was getting bigger. I was having more people get hold of me. Craig Myers got hold of me from Queensland and said, "Hey, can I join? I'm a Queensland cop." So we had some board meetings with the directors and that, and we just decided to open it up to all of Australia. So we've got 575 members now, and that's that's every state now. We've got a couple in Northern Territory, but we now do police, fire, ambulance, RFS, SES, volunteer rescue, any volunteer, paid or volunteer emergency agency. We even do nurses and we support correctives and even lifeguards. I was on a radio show down in South Victoria, and I don't know whether you guys remember a few years back, or maybe 2 years back, there was a family went down towards, not Port Lincoln, Phillip Island, and like 2 out of the 4 of the family died on the one weekend. Well, it was this poor lifesaver. It was her first shift as a fully fledged lifesaver, and she dragged both of the people out, and she's 16. And I spoke to the head bloke who was there at the time, and I said, "Mate, what mental health did you have? Like, what mental health do you have?" And he said, "It's a hot shower and go home." That's what they have. They're changing it now, which is good for them, because these people are literally dragging people in every day of the week that they're on the beaches. So this poor young 16-year-old, her life is shattered for the rest of it. Like, she's just doing a volunteer job. So that's when I thought, we really do need to bring in any first responder, because it doesn't have to be one of the 3 main ones, because there's various first responder scenes. Like, I've got people on the group who were in the hostage rescue team from the Screws, and some of the stuff that they've seen and been through, and the nurses and like my sister, she was a nurse for years, and she was assaulted in one of the jobs. She now can't lift her right arm or left arm above her head because of the way that the arm went back on the corner of the wall. It like hyperextended and stuffed it all. So there's lots of different scenes, and I just want it to be, and it is, a space where it's clinically backed, and if you have a question or you're wanting help with something, then there is help available. So we've got it's all volunteer. No one gets paid for anything. We've got directors. We've got a psychologist, trauma counsellors, mental health first aiders. One of the directors, she's the first one in New South Wales, and I think on record for EML, which is the insurance mob. She was trained in equine therapy, so she now is a qualified equine therapist, and she's got horses. So when we have our camps and things like that, she brings the horses along so we can use the horses as a therapy tool. And just simply being around them or riding them or whatever, it's incorporated in the therapy. We've got exercise physiologists. We've got personal trainers who do nutrition-based plans for us and exercises, to all this sort of stuff. We've got these things happening in all states. We're getting them in all states because I want each state to run itself individually. So we've got leaders in each state who are looking after their states. And our membership's growing like weekly, pretty much. It's free to join. It's on at the moment. It's the only access to us is through a Facebook group. We do have a website. We've got Instagram. On the 7th of July, actually, this year, we're being nominated as a finalist for the Small Business Awards in the Wollondilly area down here. So we've got a dinner on for that. We're doing the City to Surf again. So there's about 12 of us who are coming this year. We're just going to do the City to Surf, but we kind of run and stagger along because we've got like a flag and, we hand out pamphlets and stuff like that just to make people aware. We've got a locally Aussie-owned company that do all our merchandise for us. So, so it's growing. It's growing slowly, but we just want it to be about helping people. I know that, like, I've actually got people on board now who, like, one of the guys on board now, he's a ex superintendent. He used to run the homicide squad. I used to work with him at Liverpool, and we've got like a superintendent on there. Lots of different people from lots of different walks of life, and I'm not a counsellor by any means. I'm a mental health first aider, but that's about it. And I get probably 4 phone calls a week from people going, I don't know whether I want to be or I need to chat. So it helps me with my mental health by helping other people, and using myself as a guinea pig as well. Because on a Monday night, at 8 o'clock, I have a Facebook Live, and I just sit there and I talk about the week that's just happened, and I talk about how I'm feeling and whether I'm happy or whether I'm crying or whether I'm shitty or whether I'm blur. I just let them see that, because if they see that, if Whitey can be feeling that, then I'm feeling that too. And so I'm not alone. I'm not feeling, because you know what it's like when you're dealing with something and you go, fuck, am I the only one am I the only one listening a lot to this, or am I the only one feeling this way? Or
Yep.
And no one seems to understand you. And that's why it's lived experience, but it's the first one of its kind to be made by emergency services for emergency services, simply for them to have a safe space. We don't do any courses to get you back into a job. We have camps. We do them around the year, depending on weather. And it's just a case of rocking up. It doesn't cost you to rock up. Everything's supplied. You just bring your tent or your caravan, whatever you want to do. And we have therapists turn up during the weekend. So like on a Saturday morning, we might have one of the PTs do some exercises with us before breakfast, and then we'll sit and have breakfast. And it's all about sitting around a campfire. And then we have like one of the last camps we did, we had some painting materials where people were just painting, and suddenly they started talking about things. Then we have other therapists turn up during the day and say, let's sit down and have a chat. And they don't ask any questions. The people ask the questions of the therapist, and then the therapist starts to talk about things. And then suddenly, instead of having 2 people there, you might have 8 people sitting down listening to what's going on. So we found that it's really beneficial to not have therapy in that 4 walls where it's very medical. If you open up and sit around a campfire, and that really happens at night as well, like when people sit around the campfire at night, that's when a lot of emotion tends to start. But we do that, and it's something for them to reconnect with people. There's people have been turned up at our camps that I used to work with that I haven't seen in like 10 years. And suddenly they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in this group, and it's wonderful. Like I get messages from people going, I know I don't say much and I'm just following things, but I just want you to know that, what you're doing and saying is amazing. And it's really inspired me to get out there. Like I try to do I've been sick over the past few days, but I try to do a morning motivational little speech or a little quote or something, basically just to say that, you can't change the past, but you can have an impact on what happens tomorrow. So, like if I go and punch someone in the face, I'm pretty sure tomorrow is going to be pretty bad for me. But if I take myself and do what you want to do, because you only got one life, don't fuck around worrying about what ifs. You've got to do what's best for you at the time. And if at the time it's going to lay down because you feel shit, go and lay down. But if it's getting a coffee and go and sit in the sun and then go and walk the dogs, then, that's what you got to do. You keep moving forward because there's so many of us on there. I keep saying to them, it doesn't matter what point of journey you're in. We're all on the same highway. We're just at different servos. So stop and get your refuel, do what you need to do, and then join the highway, and we're back again. So yeah, it's that's where we are.
That's I mean, you mentioned something there, like talking about it and all that sort of stuff. It's something we've spoken about before, how Damon and I used to catch up quite regularly, or we talk about the police club as being part of that. But also this podcast for Damon and I is also therapy in a way.
That's right.
So,
it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's because you get like-minded people and you're talking about stuff, and I mean, that's pretty much what therapy is. It's talking about what's going on, and if it's helping people by talking, then that's what you want to engage and encourage. Like, there's a group down here that simply want to get money from people to do courses and push them back out in the workplace, and they've kind of lost their way. And I know that the New South Wales Police are pulling back from working with them because of those sorts of things, where.
Yeah.
And if the organisation can see that they're doing the wrong thing, it's not about pushing the person to the next job. It's never ever been about that. It's all about looking after that person. Like I even made challenge coins for everyone, just because, like, on one side it's the logo, and then the other side it's the logo for the podcast we do. But it's just to have that little bit of something to hold on to. Because I've had people go, well, I was a cop for so long, or I was a fiery for so long. Now I don't know what I am. And it's to make – a lot of people don't even know what challenge coins is about. So if you don't know what a challenge coin is, it started back in the Roman times. And basically when it started with the military, and when it's first come to notice was in World War I believe it was, an Allied pilot got shot down. And he had no documentation on him, and the Germans got him, and he had a particular challenge coin for his particular aircraft, his particular Air Force unit. And it was only that one of the Germans went, hang on, no, he's Allied, he's got that coin, that means whatever, that they realised he was an officer and a pilot. So if he didn't have that on him, he probably would have been shot. So it's also to be a select, you're part of a little group, you're part of a community. And like the coins I've got, you can only get them if you're in the group. So it's very significant for people to have those. And I've had lots of people go, you have no idea, like I carry it everywhere sort of thing, because it's made them feel that they're connected again and not just, sitting there wondering what's going on. So, and that's the whole idea of the charity as well, is we want to raise funds for people, because there's a lot of people on there that clearly, and obviously they have mental health issues, but some of them have physical impairments. There's a lot of, and we all know you got your financial issues. There's, whether it's legal or illegal, there are some people with substance abuse problems because of what they're dealing with. So what we want to do, and we have done it, is we have said to people, all right, well, I know you're struggling financially, and they send me messages, and I'm like, send me your 2 worst bills, and we pay a bill for them. There's one lady who her husband unfortunately ended up being scheduled in the hospital, and she just couldn't clean her house. So we arranged, and that's still ongoing. Once a fortnight, there's a company goes and cleans her house for her. Do the lawns, whatever the case may be, to help someone. And that's what we strive to do. And we're raising funds. It's very difficult in the mental health sector, is especially difficult to raise funds for emergency services. And I don't know why that is, because no one, and this is the way I look at it, no one gives a fuck until it impacts them directly. So I was ex-military, and they've thrown billions and billions of dollars at mental health for that, and understandably so. But I know blokes who are still that I was in with, who are still in the military as regimental sergeant majors or officers now, and they would not be a cop for love nor money, because as one of my mates said, he goes, "You used this in one of your comments. If we went out of the base, they knew they were going out for maybe 7 hours, maybe 3 days, and they knew that over the period of that time they were going to get hit. That was it. They knew they were going to have a firefight. Then they come back, but they might not go out for another week." But he said, emergency services, it's literally job to job to job to job, and you don't know whether you're going to be punched in the face, stabbed, shot, or whether this is going to be a nothing job. He goes, "I wouldn't do your job. You couldn't pay me enough." And I don't think people realise that emergency services are on that front line all the time, and you are hyper vigilant because you have to be to get home. And it's such a sad state that it takes for something to happen before people to take notice. And that's why I was a pain in the ass to the headquarters and all that sort of stuff when I was in the job, because I was one of those people that I knew what the job took to get done, but I also wasn't going to kiss your ass to get it done. So I was the one who, if you didn't want the honest answer, don't ask me the question. But now I'm out. I'm like, well, I will shake the tree to get people to notice it and to change things.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Mate, can I just make a comment? Just what you were saying about the military side of things. I had a mate of mine. He was an ex. He was in the army. I won't say. You get the NT's too small, so I won't say. Yeah. Anyway, he was in the army, and he was very very much frontline in the army in Afghanistan. And we were just shooting the breeze one day, having a few beers, and we were talking, telling worries and things like that. And there were a couple of boys there were Afghan veterans, and he was one of them. And we go, geez, you blokes would have seen some shit. And then someone said, it wasn't me, but someone said, "What's the worst thing you've ever been through in that?" He wasn't just infantry; he was a little bit more than that. So it was, and he's gone, "Oh, yeah, no, without doubt, no trouble at all. We were completely surrounded. I just looked up. All I saw was black faces and machetes." And we were like, "What? In Afghanistan?" He went, "Oh, shit, no, Port Keats, mate." He goes, "It was me and one other bloke. We were completely surrounded, machetes, bundies, bloody bricks flying at the car. I pulled an AR-15 out. And he said, 'Don't even bother, mate. We just drive out of here. We got to get out. We start shooting. We're going to run out of bullets.'"
Yeah.
And we said, "Bloody hell, you were in Afghanistan and a little bit more than infantry, and that's the worst thing that's ever happened." He said, "Mate, I was surrounded by commandos. We had, I've given the game away there. We had air support. We had US military support behind us. If one of us got in the shit, we had helicopters coming to get us." He said, "What do you reckon we had in Port Keats?" I said, "Yeah, nothing."
No.
He's like, "Yeah." He said, "The worst thing I've ever been through was that." And I couldn't believe it. This bloke had done multiple tours, and it was just, I couldn't believe it. That was the worst thing he'd ever been through.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think about it. I've got a mate who was special forces as well, and like I get a phone call going, it was ages ago. I get a phone call going, "Yep, Whitey, I'm off. See you in 6 months." And it's like, "Oh, okay, keep your head down," And he comes back, and it's a similar story. It's just like, "What happened? What's the hairiest thing?" And you're thinking, this should be, hell and smoke and bullets and rockets and all this sort of shit, and it's not. And like you just, I was working in Liverpool, and he was, "So how was your day?" And I said, "Oh, well, there was 2 hangings and a murder." And he's like, "Fucking what?" And it's like, "Well, yeah, I did the 2 hangings, or the detective did the murder." And they don't, and I think this is a societal thing as well. They don't see that what emergency services does as being traumatic. "Oh, you signed up for it." Yeah, well, we signed up to help and protect. I didn't sign up to be, flogged and hang on to dead bodies in the river and all this sort of stuff. So, and that's why I'm very, very keen with the charity, is to change the public's perception of that, and to change the organisation's perception. And that comes down to education as well. Like I volunteered to go down to the New South Wales Police Academy twice a year when they graduate, or when the new classes are in, and say, I'm here to tell you that you can put your hand up and say, "I need to talk to someone." I can tell you that you can survive. You just need to be able to do it. And you also need to have that education where you're not Captain Rats, you're not weak or anything like that, because I lost a lot of people that I thought were my friends when I went off with PTSD. And I thought, this is really fucking shit. Like, I used to ride the truck with you, and we bounced along, and I thought we had each other's back. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until a superintendent pulled me aside one day and he said, the reason why they do that is because they see themselves in you. And they think
Oh, so true.
if you've gone down, they're going to be doing it too. And I didn't pay much heed to it until probably 3 months after I was off, that I was getting messages from people going, I've just gone off and I didn't realize how much you have gone through. And all the people that I thought had left are now on the books to get out or have left. And it's sad because it's a national crisis, emergency services suicide, and there's not a damn thing that people want to do about it. Like, I got invited to Parliament House 2 years ago, and I went down there, spoke to them, told them all the stuff that's about it. Yeah, we'll help. No one reaches in their pockets. It's so difficult to get funding or to get donations, even when they're tax deductible, even from companies to donate. Like, I'm trying to take people to Papua New Guinea, and it's going to cost $125,000. And I just had two of the companies that were going to do it pull out because of their financial situation. And I know it's a shitty time and all that sort of stuff, but I know there's companies out there that do it and can do this. And even for people to put $5 in, and I say to people, if you were to donate something, you're more than happy to go and have a $5 coffee 4 times a day if you're at work, and probably a $12 lunch. Surely you can forego one coffee and throw $5 in. That might be the difference between helping someone get to where they need to be. Because a lot of therapy that we're finding is not covered by the workers' compensation. So a prime example of that is, have you ever done those city cave sleeps? Like, it's like a float tank. So it's basically it's you can get in ones and they shut them all down, but I was in this one. It's called City Cave, and it's a very small pool, and it's got more minerals and minerals in the pool than in the Red Sea. I think it is the one that you can't, the Dead Sea. Sorry, so you can't sink. So you go in there, and they say, right, once the instructor person goes, they say, strip off, have a shower, then get in, and then when you're ready, you can either have the music on or have it off. I didn't have any music on, and they said, right, press that little button there, and it shuts the light off. So, and I said, oh, I've got my swimmers, and they went, no, it's best to do it naked. So I went, okay, fair enough. So in there, nude up, press the button, and it goes black, and I mean like middle of Northern Territory black. Like, there is you can't see nothing. But for the first 5 minutes, I was going, am I going to sink? Is there anyone else in here? This feels really weird. And then for the next 55 minutes, I felt like I was floating in space. I couldn't think about anything negative. All I was feeling was a euphoria, and I felt happy. I felt really at peace. And 55 minutes and like it was over, you get out, you have a shower, and then they force you to sit down and have a cup of tea, this herbal tea. And I said, but I don't want to sit down. They went, you can't drive for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then I realized why, because I was going to fall asleep. And I sat there and I went, oh my God. And I went home and I had the best night's sleep I have ever had. Contacted EML and said, is this covered by work cover? Oh, no, it's because it's not a proven therapy. And I said, but it's good for relaxation, and that's what you're supposed to be doing when you're having therapy. Is you need to find things that relax you and help you sleep, because we all have bad sleep, we have bad diets, all this sort of stuff. No, it's not funded. So these are the sort of things that we are looking at in the charity, is to help people do. Like, we turn around and we'll go, all right, well, we've got 10 spots at a breath work thing where you use your breath and the way you breathe to calm yourself down, and you learn different breathing techniques, like box breathing when you're stressed out, and a yoga session or something like that, or an equine therapy session. We've also got inside the closed Facebook group, we also have little chats. So we've got guys who like feel forward driving and fishing, and there's painting and all this other sort of stuff, because a lot of them are doing painting as a therapy, but that's not funded. So this is the sort of thing we look at and we go, what helps that isn't going to come out of a box with a prescription, because we all hate taking medicine. So that's where we are, mate. It's a work in progress. I just did the CEO sleep out in Sydney with Vinnie's, and did a bit of networking there. Like, I know I've got tattoos and all that sort of stuff. I don't exactly look like I've been in the cops. I've got maybe hands and stuff like that. But there was a few people there that were looking at me like, who are you, sort of thing. And once they start talking about it and they go, oh my God, I didn't realise it was that bad. So it was a good networking experience. I mean, on top of helping the homeless. And a big shout out to the New South Wales Fire and Rescue Commissioner. He was there all night. He slept out, and it was a bit weird to not see the coppers or the AMBO's representatives there, but it was good to see at least one service getting out and helping in that aspect. So I'm hoping we can get some more funds and some more backing that way. We've even got marketing and branding. We're going through a bit of a rebrand on the website, because when I made the website, I was like, this is it. Oh, I want this. I want that photo there. It was very masculine. And it wasn't until we were talking to a guy who was a computer tech, and he said, there's been studies that show that certain colours are really good on websites for people with mental health injuries. So we looked into that, and now we've got our psych. She's redoing it, and it's a lot smoother and a lot softer, because there's certain earthy tones like the greens and the tans and all this sort of colours that make you feel at ease while you're looking at it. Whereas the one I was made was like, fucking let's macho up sort of thing. Whereas this one actually makes you want to engage in it more. So the website gives all the things that we're up to. It gives a list of services. We've got lawyers on board as well if anyone needs any legal help. And pretty much I'm making it up as I go along, because I always look at it and go, well, what did I need when I was getting out? What was I upset about? Because when you leave the cops, as you know, there's no discharge package. It's just like catch you later. Whereas I'm like, there should be a discharge package, because you got one in the military. It's like, okay, well, this is what's going to happen with your superannuation, and this is what's going to happen with your holidays, and this is what's going to happen with this, and here's a list of services to call if you're feeling this way. There should be something like that, but there's not. So we are trying to work with the organisations to say, we aren't here to change the wheel. We're not here to take over from you. We're here to help you educate your officers and to save them, because surely if you're educating them and you're getting a better retention out of them, then you're going to be paying less than in workers' comp. Because they pay me by the time I'm 68, EML would have paid, if I was to stay on EML till I'm 68, they would have paid just under $600,000 just on one officer. So they don't realise the expense that it takes to have an officer off, or compared to the expense that it would take to train people properly and look after their mental health. And it all comes down to education. I mean, if we can have an on-call bloody forensic team, surely the Christ, every organisation can have an on-call mental health team. Yeah. And they can start going and triaging at the scene. So these are the things that we're organising or we're speaking about. Next year, we are at the National Suicide Prevention Conference in Sydney from the 28th to the 30th of April. We will be there. We've got an exhibition stall set up, and our psychologist went to the one in Perth this year. But next year, Sydney, and we'll be there, and we'll also be involved in, they do like dinners and things like that as well. So it's a big chance to get another foot in the door. We're actually a member of the Suicide Prevention Australia organisation, which is everything that you should be aligned with in the mental health and suicide prevention. That's what you want to be aligned with, because that's what the government runs off, is their policies and procedures. So we're a member of that now as an organisation. So with that comes the opportunity for us to sit on panels and be involved in other exhibitions and conferences on how we can reduce the suicide and how we can have it as one of them was how we can have it as a national, should we have a national panel that the government actually listened to from first responders and things like that, and lived experience people, and which is something that should be, because it's something that doesn't matter who's in politics. It's a massive cost, not only to the organisation, but when that person becomes a civilian again, they become a massive cost to the civilian side of life. And so that's what we're aiming at, is to make it better for not just the 3 standard emergency services, for every single one that we come across, whether you're paid or unpaid. We're going to stand there and try and make things better, because if I can save one person, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, Nick, I just want to just recap a bit, because obviously the beauty of it is you've been through a hell of a lot of shit in the job yourself. So that gives a lot of lived experience there. So straight away, your credibility in this field is just through the roof.
Thank you.
You're telling your story about the baby. I just sat there and I think we spoke off recording.
Yeah.
I've been to a few in Catherine, and there's just no humour there. They're just terrible. They just take everything out of you.
They do.
There's no coping mechanisms.
I still to this day rub my index and middle finger with my thumb, and I can still feel Harry there. I can still feel him. I used to feel him on the lips but I don't feel the lips anymore. But I can still to this day feel, it's been 4 years now, and I can still feel him on my fingers.
Yeah. No, so a job like that's never going to leave your head. But I mean, the beauty of it is you've explained how you've gone through this process, gone into establishing the charity. So, and the beauty of it is the legitimacy and the credibility of you and the guys who've come on board with you is spectacular. And I think what's scary to me is because I think Schultzy's the same. I'm not going to speak for Schultzy, but I think we're pretty lucky in that the amount of shit we went through, we're pretty good. We're okay. I don't. Every day is not a challenge. I think we're very lucky. What does scare me is the scale of this problem. I don't know many people my vintage who don't have some level of problem.
Yeah.
Oh, true, 100%. Like my psychiatrist, his words to me were, in his professional opinion, anyone who has done more than 10 years in any emergency service has post-traumatic stress disorder and should be retired medically from that profession. His opinion was no more than 10 years in any emergency service, because the chances of it becoming a serious issue and you committing suicide goes through the roof.
Yeah.
It one thing actually reminded me when we were talking to that guy, ex-Vietnam vet, and he said he was fine when he was younger. It wasn't until he got older, and he was saying to Damo and I when we were talking to him that he goes, he's really worried about us, because we talk about how we're fine, but he said as he got older, it got worse for him.
Yeah, he was very full on about that. He said, I'm very, very worried. We were telling worries, we're having beers, and he mentioned Vietnam, and we started with funny stuff, and other people say, oh, what bad stuff, and then, oh, what gruesome stuff, and, you bring all that up. God, I could not comprehend how many fatal crashes, or not even fatal, just serious crashes, anything.
Yeah.
Death, my God, death. Death was just a constant. A Grim Reaper for a reason.
Yeah.
So this all came out, and he came back to us, and he says he laughed along with us, and then at the end it was just the 3 of us, because the rest of them weren't involved. They sort of didn't. It was a fun event. It wasn't all a bad day. It was just this one conversation. He did go, boys, I'm glad you're okay now, but he said, make sure you stay on top of it, because I'm really worried about you blokes. He said, the shit that you've just told me then, that's going to haunt you. He said, that's going to come back. He said, you will go 10 years without a drama. And then he said something like, and all of a sudden, a little bloody black pajamaed bloke jumped up in front of me with an AK-47. He said that it just came back. So he said he was really worried about down the track, and he said, the police aren't going to touch you, mate. You're going to be 20 years out of the job and something's going to come back.
And that's right. It's sometimes it isn't what's happening right now, and it is what's going to happen in the future. And that's why with the charity, we're trying to have it so people are on there and they don't have to say anything. It's free to join. Like, it's just a Facebook group. You can turn up to the coffee catch-ups and luncheons and camps and all that sort of stuff if you want to. You don't have to. There's no pressure. People even leave the group and then come back onto the Facebook group because they just weren't in that right headspace at the time, or they needed to take some time off. And it's like, you do whatever you need to do, but if you're asking for help, then we're more than happy to help you. And it's just sad, and it annoys the shit out of me when someone commits suicide and they get the same usual 2 weeks lip service. As soon as the soil's turned, it's back to the same old game for the organisation. It's like, hang on, you were just praising this person, and now you're back to doing the same thing. And so that's one of my things is I've tried to get into the organisation's mind and make them understand that they need to change, because you can't have that same archaic system and expect the same results from people who are going to literally more and more violent jobs. Like, my old man did 28 years. He carried the Smith and Wesson 38, and he had the 38 on one hip and the handcuffs in his pocket and the little truncheon in his back pocket. And he looked at my gear and he went, "Holy shit!" I said, "Yeah, a lot more people want to kill us now, Dad. Like, we don't get the okay. Yeah, we're going to do that, please, Mr. Police Officer. Very rarely do you do that." I said, "In your day, it was fine to bounce them around a bit because they expected that, because there wasn't as many cops and you were supposed to be hard and you had that respect." I said, "Nowadays it doesn't work because people literally do want to kill the police officers." And I can see things getting worse and worse and worse. I mean, in New South Wales, prime example of how fucked up society is, the Ambos used to have a separate uniform that looked exactly like the police. So it was a blue shirt, blue trousers, and they were getting flogged at jobs because they were thought to be police. So they went back to the white and the black, and now they're at the Ambos wear the overalls now to try and distinguish. So they still get attacked, but nowhere near as what they used to. And there's just so many things wrong with the way that emergency services are treated that, if the organisation is not going to step up and do it, then it's up to us as people who have been there and survived to make sure that the next ones along are okay and we're looking after each other. Because, I used to think, oh yeah, there's the blue family. There is no blue family. The blue family comes after you leave, when the people that were in the jobs with you, they're looking after each other. And that's what our charity is all about. It's a safe space for all responders. It's not just here's a job, go and do it. It's a safe space. You can come and we'll help you in whatever we can get for you, and we will do what we can to make it right. It doesn't matter what time of the day or night. If someone's having a bad time, we will get to them. I've even started a mobile phone app that I'm trying to get funds raised for, which basically, like, it gives you the whole stuff that you'll get on the website, but it also, instead of having to go onto Facebook and look at everything, like, you say you join Damo and you put down 2 emergency contacts, and if you're having a shitty time, you can press a button and it lets your contacts know that you're not feeling too good and you want to talk. But if you're really struggling and thinking about doing something, you can press another button and it sends a more urgent message to the admins and to your contacts, and then we try and find you. And if not, then we'll get on to the emergency services. And if we do find you, we'll take you to the hospital or whatever needs to be done. But it also gives you the opportunity to broaden the individual support network. So you join and you go, I like footy, forward driving and fishing. And then I join and I go, I like footy, fishing, and mountain bike riding. So the 2 words that we've both typed in that connect are cross-referenced, and it suggests a friend. So then we can start chatting within the app and go, hey, I'm coming up your way. Any chance you want to throw a line in at the local river or anywhere that does good forward driving? And so it broadens you that way. It also gives you an opportunity to write how you feel. It gives you emojis and you can write how you're feeling, how you slept. And it also gives the user an opportunity to post that on the app so other people can go, oh, Nick feels shit today. Oh, I might give him a touch on the messages and say, how you doing, man? It looks like you've had a shitty night. So that's what we're doing. And the app as well is also going to have a family section. So when you come into it, it'll say, are you a family member or are you an ex or serving responder? And the family members can go to the family section and it will give all support to them, like the family networks, contact numbers for the families to get together, gives them a little bit of network as well, because we've actually got people on the group who are under their wife or their husband because they don't have social media, but also because their partners are worried about their member, because, you know, the whole PTSD side of thing, the family's starting to break down, the mortgage is not getting paid. They're spending more time in hospital than not. So it's you've got to have a million fingers in a million pies to try and get it done. But we're trying our best, and I think that's all really anyone can do is try the best for those who kept running into danger when everyone was running away.
Yeah. So, Nick, one thing, mate, can you give it all a plug? Give the name again, because I think you mentioned at the beginning, but just rattle off exactly who you guys are and where people can get in touch.
The charity is Bellator Fortitudinem. So that's Bellator, Bellator, and Fortitudinem is Fortitudinem. It's a bit of a mouthful, but that is Latin for warrior strength. We were told, I changed the name, it's too hard, but our name has actually become quite a bit of a talking point because people go, oh, what does that mean? And that's an open door to let's have a chat. So yeah, you can find us on Facebook if you just Google us. We're there. There is I think there's 3 or 4 questions to answer to be accepted into the group. It just covers off who you are, because we've had a couple of snakes in the grass try to get in when they're not members. We have the Instagram and then also the website. Just type that in as well. We are rebranding at the moment, so the website does look a lot different, which is good. And we'll be at the City to Surf. We also have on the website, and also we have the PayPal link there as well. So you can make a donation to us. Anything over $2 is tax deductible. It's the end of the financial year, so if you've got a hidden $50,000 you need to get rid of, throw it in, and you can claim it back.
I wish.
But and all our merchandise as well. That's on our website, but it's also a small company called 3 to Tango. A percentage of all sales for our merchandise goes to our charity. So we've got sloppy joes like the one I got on, hats, sports gear, wristbands, stubby holders, you name it, it's all there. So we're just trying to change the world one day at a time.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah, no, that's really good, mate. And also for everybody listening, Nick, I'll get you to send through all the stuff and we'll post on our socials for you.
Thank you.
To get you out as much as possible.
Yep.
Nick, you're doing the work that needs to be done, mate. There's it's a growth. Unfortunately, it is a growth industry. What I like is that this wouldn't be a new thing. I know that you mentioned, your Dad's Day, that it wasn't necessarily the level of full-onness that it is now. And I've heard that from older police a lot. They go, I could never do it now. You blokes, oh God, could never do it.
Yeah.
So, look, we're really appreciative, mate. Thanks very much for coming on. It's been brilliant. You're doing the Lord's work. If you're religious or not, doesn't matter. It's you're doing that. You're doing good for people. So, and charity, there's no benefit in it. It's just that you're helping out people who need to be helped. And we've seen it. We've spoken about it on this podcast a number of times. We talk about PTSD. We talk about mental health issues. Just the toll that the jobs take. And I love the fact that you're all services because they're all different, but they all sort of still affect people in different ways. And it's very negative a lot of the time. So, mate, it's been a pleasure to have you on. It's excellent.
Mate, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. And I just, as I said, I just want to bring to light that it is a national crisis. We are having people, do these things that they think that there is no other way out. And I've been at that bottom. I have been at the bottom of that, and it looks dark and it's ugly and it's nasty. But, people reached out to me to get me out, and you can climb out of that hole. You just have to be willing to reach up, and that's what we're here for. And we will dig until we can get you out.
Yeah, magnificent.
Yeah.
Mate.
Yeah. Thanks, boys.
Take us home, Chelsea.
All right, mate. Well, this is Extraordinary Cops, and Nick, thanks again. Hopefully, we'll see you in April. That'd be really beneficial, I think. And we always love a trip where we have a couple of beers. But otherwise, that's the Extraordinary Cops signing off.